So, Zoroastrianism was a religion that was developed from the ancient religions in Iran, right? Um, and it is considered to have been founded by the prophet Zarathustra in the 6th century BCE, although there is some contention about whether or not he didn't live even earlier than that, going as far back as 10th century BCE, and then we just see writings attributed to his name around that time, although we do know that there was a Zarathustra in 6th century BCE who consolidated at least the teachings of Zoroastrianism. So it was founded in modern-day Iran, which tells you the sort of climate that it was based in, right? A desert environment, much like how Islam and Judaism were founded. But you have to understand, religious worldviews are also metaphysical in nature, right? You're saying that there's a particular structure to the way of a world and the universe as a whole, and included in that structure is a deity or multiple deities. In the case of Zoroastrianism, there is one chief deity, one uncreated creator deity, very similar to the Christian and biblical God. And his name is Ahura Mazda, which literally means wise one or wise lord. And he stands in opposition of an a super powerful evil deity called Angra Mainya, Angramaynu, Angra Mainyu, sorry, not Manya, and which literally means destructive spirit, right? And in Zoroastrianism, these two beings stand in constant conflict against each other, right? They're constantly battling it out. And not only are they are responsible for all the strife that occurs in the world, but even for the things that exist in the world, right? On the Zoroastrian framework, all things are either have an inherent disposition towards good or towards evil, and it depends on what spirit is responsible for their creation, right? So say you have like a carnivorous hunting beast like a wolf, right? Wolves are going to be considered to be evil spirits or snakes or something like that. I don't know which exact spirits are what, but you can imagine that. Whereas by comparison, or in contrast, you would have something along the lines of, um, an eagle or, a lizard, who knows, would be a good animal because it was created by Ahura Mazda uh, in comparison, right? The one exception to this is humans, right? Humans are the only beings in the Zoroastrian world order that have the ability to choose which way which spirit we indulge in, right? Uh, so part of what this means is that Zoroastrianism has, unlike the pre-Socratics that we've discussed to this point, there is an inherent sort of soteriology to it, and soteriology is just a word for saying like a path towards salvation, right? Uh, and that goes with adhering to and following the worship of Ahura Mazda, right? Through an intermediary god, right? You don't worship Ahura Mazda directly, but you do it through worshiping Asha, who was the god of fire, but also of the embodiment of the concepts of truth, order, and existence as a whole, right? And the reasons for that is that Asha comes from his name comes from the Avestan Asa, which is a cognate of the Sanskrit, and Sanskrit is the language of the Vedas, right? So Hindu mythology, it's a cognate of both the word Sat and Rita, right? Sat meaning being in or existence, and Rita meaning truth or order, right? Uh, so Asha's name is literally derived from the very concepts that he is an embodiment of, right? Uh, and it's this idea right there of truth, order, and existence being encapsulated with the god of fire that we think might have influenced Heraclitus, right? And his idea of the theory of fire and flux, constant change, right? But fire being the metaphor for all things that exist, for the truth of existence being in constant flux, and the order of things being determined this way. Right? So you can see how there might have been some influence on through Zoroastrianism on Heraclitus there. Right? So an additional difference between the pre-Socratic philosophers of ancient Greece and their metaphysical, you know, wonderings, ponderings, and Zoroastrianism is that there's a clear sort of ethical order, right, an ethical bent to reality in Zoroastrianism that's not there in ancient Greek philosophy uh, amongst the pre-Socratics, right? The world's divided into good and evil. It's not morally neutral the way it is for the pre-Socratics. Right? So the pre-Socratics are more scientific in their presentation, right? Morality doesn't have to do with the very order of the world, whereas for Zoroastrianism it does. And then the second thing is this gives like special place and prominence to humanity, right? Since we're the only beings that have the ability to determine, uh, our own moral character. Uh, this makes us special, whereas we're not particularly special to this point in pre-Socratic thought, right? Um, Keep in mind the origins of Greek society were we should be humble before the gods, right? Because it was only when we thought that we were special and did something out of conceit that the gods punished people in, Greek mythology, or if they felt the whim, right? And the gods were superhuman even in their very presentation, right? Their personalities were exaggerations of humanity itself. So humanity is not good, it's not bad, it just is, right? Human nature is godly nature, just to a godly nature is human nature, rather, just to an nth degree in Greek thought to this point. Whereas for Zoroastrianism, human nature might be godly nature, but we can bring it to that same nth degree, right? It's because we were created by Ahura Mazda. Um, Now, what makes humans special is intelligence, right? It's the mind, and that's made explicit in the Zoroastrianist text, that the mind is what makes humanity special because our ability to think, to reason, allows us to determine what is good and what is evil, right? It allows us to see truth where other animals cannot, right? They just act on their inherent nature, which, again, determined by which God creates them. But our ability to see truth through reason enables us to go ahead and choose, to do good or do bad, right? To act according to truth and order or against it, because we're able to see it in a way that other animals are not. So in this way, Zoroastrianism provides a nice little counterpoint to the pre-Socratic philosophers we discussed to date. Um, a counterpoint we'll expand on when talking about Taoism.